The process of building new homes is full of uncertainty and unexpected obstacles. Regulatory barriers make it riskier, longer, and more expensive, which has consequences for housing affordability. Now, Montgomery County is proposing another regulatory burden. On June 13th, Montgomery County Executive Marc Elrich and Councilmember Riemer introduced the comprehensive decarbonization legislation. This bill would ensure all electric building standards become part of the county's building code, guaranteeing construction be primed for a zero greenhouse gas emission future by 2035. Nancy, decarbonization is a process of reducing carbon dioxide emissions to mitigate climate change. The drivers of decarbonization are community preferences and government mandates. So does our community support these changes, or is it entirely driven by politicians wanting to save the planet?
Well, it's probably a combination of both. I do think what they've introduced is a statement of intent and direction that such a bill be written. So, the devil is in the details here. So we don't know exactly how this would apply. I'm assuming they're going to go for the most comprehensive approach, which is to require pretty much anything that's newly constructed or any additions to housing or commercial premises be all electric. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think electricity we're going to be able to sustain ourselves just on solar panels and things like that. So this electricity is going to have to come from somewhere. So, to me, at least, I'm not sure we're going to reduce that much in the way of carbon emissions. They may be generated elsewhere, or maybe we're going to go all nuclear going forward, which seems also unlikely.
We're going to have to explore the transmission issue a little later in the topic, but
so
that's a key. That's going to be a key point. And as Marc, as Nancy pointed out, there are challenges that may impede the progress toward low carbon emissions, including technological innovations and low carbon sources, consumer behavior surrounding climate change, the cost of doing all this expensive and time consuming. And there may be some unintended consequences, according to some experts. For example, it could hurt human respiratory health due to the increased levels of sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, or carbon monoxide. So have we explored these downsides enough before we pass this bill?
Well, before we get to the downsides, and there are some very significant ones, Nancy talked about it's unclear whether you do a house renovation, if that's going to pull you into the all-electric mandate. But I want to point out, I think the key point to make here is that there really is no green free lunch. I think advocates of these kinds of mandates have tended to suggest that somehow they're going to create new jobs and green jobs and there's going to be no cost. And that's not true. The fact that you have to do a mandate as opposed to having the market do this naturally, the market's doing some of the transition from coal to natural gas, but the fact that these are mandates reflects the fact that there are significant costs attached to it. And we're seeing with the increase in gas prices, a huge response to that, where gasoline prices, where people just are not prepared to pay that price. And the advocates of these mandates have been less than forthcoming about the fact that it means higher electric costs already.
Yeah. Well, let's be clear though, all electric homes, for example, are not a new idea. I'm sure we have a plan, and they announced this at a place where it was all electric. So I think the real issue will be, again, the extent to which the cost would be involved in retrofitting existing facilities. And that's the challenge, I think, that they're going to have to take up as they go forward. And it's not clear to me if they're going to completely ban the use of natural gas. That's a whole other kettle of fish.
Well, and that, as I understood it, they were going to, if you had a substantial renovation, you would have to be all electric, which would foreclose using natural gas for heating or for cooking, which is at this point far more efficient, more economical, more efficient than going all electric. My point is, let's be honest about where the costs are when we're making this transition, as opposed to just suggesting that it's all ice cream and party favors.
Well, nothing is free, that's for sure. But, let's wait and see how this rolls out. Again, this is, right before the election. It's also always an issue for politicians. How do we place ourselves in the line of fire? And what's interesting is these are two candidates running against each other for the role of county executive.
Well, but
So
let's
that's
also,
interesting.
look at this. I mean, this is a long-term effort by the county executive and the county council to adopt more green measures. And, I think what's missing here is the cost. I mean, the cost factor. I mean, affordable housing in Montgomery County is virtually non-existent because of the high cost of land and the regulatory burden that we already are burdened with in building. So, this could be a non-starter with a lot of home builders. I mean, I'm not worried about the office guys. The office guys will do what the office guys have to do. And, we have a plethora of office in Montgomery County anyway. It's really home building. That's what I'm concerned about, Nancy.
Yeah. And as Marc has pointed out, the issue is going to be home renovations. You add a new room to your house. Does that mean you have to change a house that has natural gas in it to all electric? That's where the big cost factors can come in, as well as just renovations of modest homes. That's a big cost factor as well. So you're right. Those are things to be considered, and we'll see how this rolls out.
And Marc, the one thing that I think, and you touched on this just a minute ago, is recent studies have concluded that efforts to create an emission-free electricity sector will require massive expansions of the electric grid in order to reach net zero emissions by mid-century, not just 2035, by mid-century, increasing total capacity 2 to 5 times. We can't even build a power plant, let alone supply 2 to 5 times the electricity.
And one of the challenges is that while solar and wind can contribute, you need to have if you want to have reliable power, you need to have a backup infrastructure that can kick in when there is that need. And that's expensive, and that's kind of one of the costs that you need to factor into that overall equation. The key point is that there is no adequate battery technology which allows for a backup of power, which then requires the fact that you still have to rely on these other sources, or else you have a refrigerator that basically has no power and the food all gets spoiled.
Well, there are reports in Europe right now that the wind turbines haven't been blowing for the last 5 days, and they're really shocked that there is a problem with transmission of electricity.